Welcome to the Planet Paintball Podcast, the ultimate podcast for paintball enthusiasts. Each week, we dive into the world of paintball, bringing you stories, insights, and tips from players, coaches, and industry insiders. Sponsored by 1023 Sportswear. Looking for high-quality gear that performs as hard as you do? Check out 1023 Sportswear. And as a listener of the Planet Paintball Podcast, you can get 20% off your order with the code Planet Paintball. Suit up, save big, and play your best.
All right, welcome back to the Planet Paintball Podcast, brought to you by 1023 Sportswear and Southwest Paintball in Bayfield, Colorado. If you're in Bayfield, Colorado area, which is the Southwest region, please go by and say what up to John. Today, I got someone I've been waiting to get on for a while, on from the Filthy Few, QuickShot Paintball. What's going on, Don?
Hey, man, glad to finally get on the show. You know, I apologize about the delay. I understand that I haven't been the most reliable.
Hey, you know, you're a busy man, to say the least.
Well, I think that we're all busy. I think that sometimes logistically I get challenged with trying to do too many things at one time, right? I think that I'm one of those people that goes all the way in when I'm in, and I'm pretty deep right now. So,
yeah, you're definitely a full throttle kind of guy, which I appreciate.
For sure.
You guys coming off a big win for the D squad. So that was the second win of the season, right?
For sure. That was D3 second first place at a national event this year. It was pretty exciting. I mean, I have to tell you, it's the expectation for them, though. I mean, they're that good. Those guys are that good. They train that hard. So we don't go to an event hoping that they win or hoping that they make Sunday. We really go to an event expecting them to do what they did.
Well, they did it.
They did. You know, they had a little bit of blowback, right? I think that we have earbud gate going on now from it.
Yeah. Oh, Chris and I were talking about earbud gate. I think it's been defunct, though, that he was just talking to the mom of one of the players.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite obvious. The dad was actually in the scorekeeper's tent, sitting next to the scorekeeper and the ultimate, right? Like, they knew who he was talking to and what the conversation was. You know, it's interesting to me that that's the path that we take. Like, I get it. We're all competitors. We want to win. Folks want to win. They work hard. It costs a lot of money to play NXL. You lose time from work. You go down there and things don't go the way that you want, right? We've been there.
Yeah.
I just think to question somebody's character, you know, it is a little disappointing to me.
Yeah,
personally.
it's a big step to go from that didn't go the way we want to they must have been cheating.
Right.
You know, and the earbud thing has been rumored, not for you guys, but like that it happens in the league, right? So it's kind of, at some point it was a known tactic that some teams were employing. Definitely not Filthy, but.
Yeah, well, if that's really something that people do, you know, they come out and they're checking our tanks, right? They're checking our IDs. I mean, shame on the NXL for not checking for earbuds if that's really something like that they feel like is happening.
True. It would be an easy check, right? Hey, if you're wearing a shiesty, I need to see those ears before the game starts.
I mean, they're checking your chrono coming on. It's not that much of a challenge, but
no,
you know, that's above my pay grade. I'm happy that they're talking about us because if they're talking about you, you're doing something right.
That's right.
And these guys are grinding hard. They're working hard. They deserve to win, and people are talking about them. And we're okay being your villain.
Well, what was that shirt you posted on Instagram a couple days ago?
We make one for every tournament, you know, if things go well. We've had one that says we ruined Sunday. We've had another one that says we're filthy. We don't fucking care, you know. And it's okay. They don't have to like us. You know, we're going to respect every team that we go to play, and hopefully they respect us, and we're trying to win just like they are.
Awesome. Well, before we get too deep down the team line, let's dig in with how you found paintball.
That's an interesting concept. I want to say roughly 3 years ago now, we were kicking around an idea for an employee event at my office. And one of my guys, he says to me, he says, well, what do you think about a paintball event? And I had never seen paintball, never looked at a paintball, never thought about paintball. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. So we booked this my wife who runs our business development at our company. She does the employee, care and she books this event. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm talking to this guy. He works for me. It was his idea, and he says, they give you this rental equipment. It doesn't work that well, and he gives me all the parameters of it. And I'm like, man, I'm going to go buy my own gun before this thing even happens, right? Because I'm not getting lit up by all my employees. I'm going to light them up.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to this place, QuickShot. It's right by my house. They've been around forever. Great guys, very helpful, very knowledgeable. We go in there. I tell the kid, I'm like, yo, I'm going to have this event for my employees. Like, they're going to want to roast me, but I need to be able to roast them. I said, give me the best of everything that you have. And I think he sells me some EMEC or something. He's like, you don't need the best. You just need this. You know what I mean? So he sells me a hopper, a gun, a tank, a pod pack, all the basic gear. So the next weekend I go out and play because, I got to practice a little bit before I go.
Get the edge
So
out
here
of
we
them.
are, we're out in the woods, and that was it. Like, from the first time that I got shot in the face, to the first, and the first time that I got to shoot somebody else in the face, like, that was it. It was adrenaline in its purest form. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I couldn't get over it. We played every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, for like the next 5 months in the woods. The event came and it passed because it rained, and it actually ended up getting canceled. So we never had the event. And I was at this place in the woods playing every Saturday and Sunday, and people would talk about this speedball thing. It was like this elusive, like, girl that you couldn't quite get a hold of, right? Like in the woods where you're playing with all the weekend warriors. And another place near us had like Wednesday night street ball at night.
Okay, nice.
QuickShot across the street from the woods ball, a guy named Elvin Cologne owned it. But that was known for serious players. They were like, you don't want to go over there, right?
Okay.
They say, go to this other place. They have Wednesday night street ball. You can walk on and play. So me and my wife and my kid, we walked over there. We started playing on Wednesday night and haven't been back in the woods since.
Nice.
Not once. And, we love it. I play. My wife plays. My son plays.
It's a real family affair.
It is. I mean, we've played every weekend for going on 3 years now.
It's a long
There
time.
was a period of time for about 6 months when I first started playing street ball that I stopped even going into my office. I had my assistant running my office while I would go practice every day.
Wow.
Trying to learn.
It's definitely a shortcut, right?
It's one of those things, right? When you're young and you have time, you don't have the money. When you have the time and the money, you're not really young anymore most times. So it's like, they both have their advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, let's shout out the wife.
Carly Colamesta plays for the High Rollers.
The New Jersey High Rollers. They got second in the first event, right?
I believe they got second in the first event.
Yeah. So, and then she was a big part of the D4 team win at the second event, right?
At the second event, she was a cornerstone. She played just about every point for our D4 line because the High Rollers, the WNXL Pro girls don't play.
Yeah,
but
they
a
go
couple
every
events
other
a year. Yeah, so she was able to play with us where her passion is. She loves playing with our line, and I mean, she held it down. She was instrumental in us bringing that first place home.
Yeah, she definitely was. And then your son also plays for the youth line, correct?
My son plays for the youth line. Yep.
And talk about other win.
Yeah. It's been a journey for them. That's actually one of the Filthy's first lines was the Filthy Kids, because when I started Speedball, I played for another organization, and the owner of that organization and I, we really believed in the kids and bringing the kids along and them being the future. And honestly, getting them out of the house and getting them off of the games and off of Instatalk and doing some physical things again. So it was important to me when I left that organization and started this one to have a youth line. And, it's had its ups and downs for them. The Hydra kids has really been a good team and a nemesis for them. They got to beat them this event, which I'm sure for them was very rewarding and very gratifying.
Yeah, I think it was. That it's always nice when you've been hitting the wall, right? And then you can break through the wall.
For sure. For sure. And they've got some talented kids. Most of the kids that play on our youth line play on our D5 or D4 line, so they're playing divisional ball as well. So it's a long weekend for them. It's a grind, right?
It's a
They're
very long
playing
weekend.
from Friday on.
Yeah, that's and then a lot of times they got to go play the youth, and then they still have matches for their divisional team to do.
For sure. Little Meyer Robinson is a good example, right? He's one of our starters on the D4 line, and he's running back and forth between the youth line and the D4 line. When he's healthy, that is. Those boys are fragile.
They're a little fragile. So I almost asked Chris for your address this past week, and I was just going to send you a thing of bubble wrap.
It's funny. I gave that name, I think, to his brother, but it fits them both. It fits them both.
Yeah.
Good players, though. Good players, good kids, good character. Great for the camp. We're fortunate to have them.
Yeah, they are good kids.
That's a lot of commitment from Chris and from them, bringing them up from South Carolina for our practices and layouts. And it's great having them in the camp. We couldn't exist without those kids, and Chris really are our mainstay for me.
Uh-huh.
But Chris is the one that keeps me sane at the tournaments. Well, I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. He pushes me to the brink. But then again, he's like the guy that I can rely on, He's a great guy. He's a great guy to have around.
Yeah. So from finding Speedball to first tournament, how long we talking? A week, a month?
So I think I tried out like December, January, and then I think our first tournament was April or May. It was a local league. It was called the Tri-State X-Ball League at the time, which at the time was a very big league. I think that there was between 15 and 17 teams in the D5 bracket.
Yeah, that's pretty solid for a regional league.
For sure. I mean, it was really a good league at one time in this area. It was a strong league. And, we went to it and we took first place. I don't know that I was much help at it. I played a lot at it, but I don't know that I was much help. I was the guy that I went on the field with 12 pods, and I was behind one bunker the entire time. And when I was done, it looked like a graveyard around me of pods, right? But our guys managed to win it. We trained hard. We had some good players, and we came out of that with a first place, and that was exciting,
And it's pretty rare to have your first event have a win, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we went a little drought after that. I think we smelled ourselves a little bit. The drilling, the practicing fell off. We didn't do so well after that. We played NXLAC. That was my first exposure to the NXL.
Okay.
And we took a fourth home from there. Not long after that, I ended up separating from that team, and that's when I started Filthy.
Okay.
And, it was, so that's July, August. I'm trying to put together a team. Most teams are already solidified. Players already belong places. Everybody's like, you can't do it. It's not going to work. It won't happen. We put a team together. We competed pretty successfully on a local level in that same tournament series. Went to Cup. It didn't go that great. First experience. So AC was one animal, but that Cup is a whole nother animal, even if you're an NXL type paintball player, right? Like it's double or triple the teams that you have at, AC or Chicago. And I don't think that we were prepared for that, but it was a great experience. I wouldn't take it back. We went, we competed, didn't do as well as we wanted to do, but knew where we wanted to get to. Right. So we came home from that. We had tryouts. We fielded a team. We had a really good team. We put together a D4 and a D5 line. Not this year. This was last year.
Yeah. Okay.
Signed us up for MVPS right before the first Vegas event. It was going to be like a dry run. Right?
Yeah.
Like a practice. We were all going to go down. We were going to stay At our Florida house, we were going to play MVPS. 2 weeks before MVPS, the team imploded.
Oh no.
So there we are trying to rebuild a team,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's 2 weeks before MVPS, 3 weeks before Vegas. Registration's already paid. We let the MVPS go to some other folks that were part of the line that we had that had imploded, and we concentrated on going to Vegas. And we picked up some bodies. We flew to Vegas, and again, that didn't go the way that we wanted it to go.
Mhm.
And that's okay. You know, I questioned whether I wanted to keep playing paintball a lot of times. It just seemed like I couldn't quite get the pieces to stay together.
Yeah.
You know, paintball is fickle, right? Paintball is fickle.
Very.
People in paintball, it's always in flux. You have a sport that's very expensive to play. Most of the folks that play it don't have a lot of income. The players that are good, other folks are always trying to lure them away. Everybody thinks that they're better than they are. You know, it's a challenge, right? We struggled there for a minute, but we were fortunate. We stuck it through. The guy, Bo, the Elvin that had owned the QuickShot Speedball, he helped us with some bodies to get through the year. I picked up Meyer and Colin right before AC last year. And we just started to get pieces through the year. And we went from finishing, I don't know, if there was 76 teams in Vegas, we probably finished 71st.
Okay.
I think
So it was a rough one.
Yeah, I in Chicago, I think we finished 4th, right? So we definitely transitioned through the year and continued to get better, which was exciting.
Yeah, it can be I think Ed Portman from Avalanche is famous for saying paintball teams are like bands, except instead of 4 or 5 dudes, you got 10. And trying to keep a band together is hard. Trying to keep 10 dudes together can be very difficult.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you have just normal everyday life, right? Relationships, family, jobs, like all these things that we're all going through individually. And then, you know, you're trying to keep those 8, 10 people that are going through all these different journeys, you know, separately in their own lives and keep them in a gelled position on this paintball journey. You know, it's challenging. It takes a lot of sacrifice from people if they want to make it work, everybody on the team. And unfortunately, a lot of people can't see past right here, right now. And that's okay because everything happens the way it's supposed to.
That's true. That is very true. You kind of took us up to Chicago, which leads to where we met for the first time, a World Cup. You guys did all right at World Cup, right? For the teams, like not as good as Chicago, but it is World Cup.
Yeah, we did okay. I'd be dishonest if I said I wasn't disappointed, right? You go to World Cup, you want to win it.
Yeah.
But I think that we went, and for what it was, for building the team through the year again, I think that we did, you know, we improved drastically from the beginning. I think that we continued to grow. We had committed players, and it was part of the journey.
So at this point, have you already taken over QuickShot Speedball?
So yeah, my wife and I took over QuickShot Speedball somewhere around June, July last year.
Okay.
You know, the owner's a great guy. He works a lot. It was becoming increasingly more challenging for him to keep up with the maintenance and all the things that had to be done. So my wife and I decided to take something that was a hobby and something that we did for the love of it and make it into a job so that we could learn to hate it.
It takes a lot to be a field owner. People don't appreciate it as much as they should, for sure. You've done a lot of big improvements there, though. You put in, it had turf beforehand, but you redid one of the turf fields already, right?
Yeah, we redid them both now. So we actually graded about 6 inches underneath of one field to create better drainage and a better surface. Now this year we redid the second field. It's not quite perfect yet, but it's a lot better. We re-netted for field 1. We have a light system that's like a stadium. So a lot of places have the string lights hanging up over top of it. This is like stadium lighting that shines down, that it's almost like playing in daylight.
Okay, nice. When did that go in?
So the first field's turf went in around last July, August. The second field's turf went in right around Tampa this year, and then the lights went in probably 2 months ago.
Okay. Just in time for summer. It's a little cold up there to be doing nightball in the dead of winter.
It does get cold, I'll tell you, but the guys like nightball. We always get a lot of requests for nightball, so we always intended to do it. But everything that I do, I want to do it to the best of my ability. I didn't want to put string lights back up. I wanted to have it be an atmosphere where you could come and actually see what was going on in play.
When did the relationship start forming with the Wrecking Crew guys and the Leverage guys?
So the Leverage guys, actually, I played with Brandon Domenico when I first started playing Speedball. On Friday night, they would have Friday night lights at QuickShot too. So after we'd been playing Wednesdays for like 3 months, we went over to QuickShot, my wife, me, and my son. And that's Brandon used to play there on Friday nights. So I met him there.
Okay.
And then when I joined that other team, when I started playing for that team, when I started playing for that other team up in North Jersey, that's where the Leverage guys would practice.
Okay.
So I developed a relationship with Brandon there, and he taught me everything from how to take a gun completely apart and clean it, taking the frame off, taking everything off, to he would dedicate hours and hours and hours and hours teaching me how to play. When I talked about taking time off from work, he's one of the people that would teach. Like, we would meet every day, and he would break shooting, snap shooting, everything, just hours and hours of time he spent with me. And he's the one that I really built a relationship with in the beginning. Zach would come down too on some Friday nights, and I met Zach, and Zach's a very nice guy. But like, as far as Leverage, they're the two guys that I knew. So I knew them almost from the beginning. The Wrecking Crew guys, so Splitty, who plays Snake for Wrecking Crew, and Tall Stevie, who is their player coach, they live local to me, right? So they practice at my field themselves when they're not practicing with their team. And when the team imploded right before the Vegas event last year, we lost our coach. I think it was disheartening for a lot of people to build that team, see it really gelled together. It really looked competitive. And then at the last moment, it kind of imploded. And I think that that affected some of the players that weren't really part of the implosion. And I think it affected the coaches, right? Because you devote that much time and energy to something. And sure, you get paid a little bit of money for helping, but really you're spending all your time training people. You're doing it because you love the sport, right? So I lost my coach at the same time. And so I asked Stevie to take it on. And I remember when I asked him, like, it was no question, no doubt. He took it on, was willing to help, wasn't trying to beat me up financially, wanted to do it to help the guys get better. And, he stuck with us through all of last year. And through the course of that, like, I met Rob, the owner of Wrecking Crew, and then I started to help them a little bit in their pit, and I developed a relationship with him. He's from this area. He's from New York. I naturally, in everything that I do, you want to learn from somebody that's already doing it and doing it well, right? And,
Absolutely.
when you look at Wrecking Crew, you can't really argue that the guy's doing it well, right? Like, he has the right athletes, the right program, the right training regimen, and I wanted to model, some of what he was doing, because in everything that I do, I take all the aspects of the things from people I admire and I incorporate them into what I do, right? And then, there's some things I think, well, maybe I have a better system, and I change those things. And Stevie's been with us. Tall Stevie didn't help us as much last year, but he really came in this year when we added the premier line. The D3 line is our premier line. And I think it's exciting for those guys to work with that line as well, because there's so much potential there.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I'd say there's potential all the way through the camp. At least the outcomes show that.
They do. The guys had a tough loss. After event one, they lost their home player, who was also their team captain. NRG picked him up to their pro line. So I think, I don't want to say that event two was because of that, but I think that losing that leadership for them And that happened literally 2 weeks before the event, right?
Yeah.
Literally 2 weeks before the event, they lost their team captain, and I think that was a challenge for them. I don't think that was their only reason.
Hmm. Yeah, but it's definitely a big one. Like if a player, obviously, if a player's getting picked up from a D3 squad and getting to go pro, like that player's a very good player on your D3 squad. And then if they are also in a leadership role, can be hard to fill those voids so quickly sometimes.
For sure, and in all fairness, Connor had some semi-pro experience. He played D2, like, he was definitely a valuable body, right,
Hmm.
outside of just leadership skills, and we were fortunate to have him. He helped get our guys to where they are. The time frame he left us before an event was a little bit unfortunate, but, at the end of the day, we all have to make our decisions, right? And he needed to do what he needed to do for him.
Yeah, yeah. So let's step back a little bit. In the off season, you did create this premier line because you had D4, you had D5, you had the youth. What made you want to create that line?
What's the D3 line?
Yeah.
Well, the goal for me really is to have a pro line, right? So I'm always building. That's my nature, is to always be building. I don't do anything with the intention of I'm going to do this and now I'm done, right? So the natural progression is always to be trying to build towards something. So I had the guys that played on our D4 line last year that were D3, and I had the ability to pick up a couple of their teammates, and then I had the ability to grab, we're fortunate we have Mason from Team USA, right? Mason Lombo, he's a really good player. We have Tremaine from Team USA, he's a really good player. We have Brian Catania, who had some semi-pro experience, D2 experience, come back. So we had the players to put a D3 line together that I thought could be competitive.
Okay.
Right. And it would be real easy for me just to cherry pick a couple really good players to put on my D4 line and make me look good. Right.
Yeah.
And win some things. But, winning is about more than just your personal accomplishment at any event. Right. Like if we can build a brand and an organization that can culturally impact paintball and bring kids into paintball, then it's a success, right? Because we live in a time where substance use and mental health is really at an all-time low. So it's important to me to build a culture and an environment where people want to go to. And that means building lines from youth up to hopefully pro at some point if we can continue growing.
Okay. So the goal would be to have that whole farm system eventually.
But even if it's not a farm system, right? Even if the goal isn't just to develop them from youth to pro,
Mhm.
which I think that you can't help but do that if you have a good program,
Yeah.
right? It's just to have as many kids have an outlet and a place to go as possible. Because you'll hear, if we talk enough, you'll hear from me over and over. Like, I feel like the youth are really challenged today. I feel like as parents, we're not doing as good as we can. I feel like society's not doing as good as they can. I have some really smart kids of my own that have some social adjustment issues in large part because of my learning how to be a parent, right? And I think this generation especially has a difficult time socially. I think, team sports are on the decline. I think that one-on-one social contact is on the decline. So I
Yeah.
think that paintball is something good. Not to mention, like the way that I make my living is mental health and substance use, right? So the correlation between the way a sport like paintball and alcohol and drugs, the way that they affect the brain is very similar. So I feel like that this is a positive outlet for folks that could otherwise go down maybe a more troubling path.
Yeah. And and you do see there's a lot of addictive personalities in paintball, right? Like I think that's fair to say. There's a lot of us from the very beginners to the pros that are super obsessive. And
Yes.
if that gets put into something like drug use or alcohol abuse, like it just transfers over. Like as assessed as you see someone with those things is how obsessed they can be with paintball too.
For sure, or anything else that they find in their life. But
Mhm.
this is something that I really was drawn to, and I felt the release that I feel like a lot of folks that suffer from them challenges could latch on to.
Mhm.
So it's a passion for me.
Yeah. And it's just we'll have to do a counter. How many times does the phone drop?
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's good. I love everything about this.
I apologize. This is my office, though.
Hey, no,
My guys can tell you, I'm out here 3 times a day. I come out at 4 a.m. I meditate. I smoke a cigar. I go into my office until about 11, 12 o'clock. I come home. I come in until about 2 o'clock, meditate. I get out for a couple hours, and then I come back in around 6 o'clock, and I'm in here until about 8 o'clock. I do it 3 times a day.
nice. It's good for the circulation.
Yeah. It's good for a lot of things.
Let's talk about the clothing line or brand, if you will. How would you define Filthy Streetwear, first of all? Is it a custom house? Is it a more traditional clothing line like JT might be? A little bit of hybrid of both?
So it's an interesting question. When I first started playing paintball, I was connected with some folks that did some boutique, right? They would get some things, and then they would do some custom printing on them and make it their own sub brand of that. Or, they did some headbands or some other things. And when I was connected with them, it got my head spinning. Like, I was like, these guys have so much potential to really capture like a street market, a streetwear type market, right? I was thinking I would like to just manufacture clothes for them, So I started to develop an idea of manufacturing clothes because I wanted to be able to present them with something that they can then take and customize to how they wanted it to be to fit their need.
Mm-hmm. So, like, here's a pant. It's a blank slate, though. Do what you want with it, type thing.
Or once I developed the ability to be able to manufacture anything they wanted me to manufacture for them to do their custom things to, right?
Gotcha.
So when I left there, that idea left, right? Because, that relationship kind of hit a pause. And it was just an idea at that point. It wasn't like something I had a conversation with, it was just something in my brain. I was like, if I could develop a way to make these clothes for them, this would be beneficial, And when I left, I had already started developing it. And then it's like, you look at some of these pants, you go to buy them, they're $170, right? So, and they don't last. So
You
I
might
just
get a
thought to
half
myself,
season.
I'm going to start making quality clothes for guys that wear paintball and for streetwear. And I'm going to sell them at affordable prices, right? And I'm going to stand behind my product, and I'm going to give people good customer service. And, we don't get into like, all of my things are able to be customized, right? If I got a guy that wants to wear my pants and he's an exceptionally skinny guy, I'll make them for him, right? I'll customize. If he's exceptionally tall and needs, extra length in him, I'll make them custom for him. I enjoy doing that. And at the same time, any profit that I make with the clothing, it allows me to let my guys play paintball for cheaper, right? Because at the end of the day, the more time behind your gun, the more paint that you shoot, the more you're out there with your guys, the better you're going to play.
Absolutely.
And it was the same thing with the field. It's the same reason that we bought the field, right? If we have a field that our guys can train at whenever they want, if we can keep paint cost effective for the guys, now if I can manufacture their jerseys and rather than them paying, $120, $130 for a jersey, if I could give them a jersey at an affordable price, if I can give them pants that last at an affordable price, it's a good thing. So that's really how that started. We make some joggers and some shorts. We make some swimsuits. We make some streetwear too. It started out as a great idea, but now it's turned into a full-time job. So I have that full-time job. I have the paintball field, which has turned into a full-time job. on top of having like my job.
Yeah, your actual company.
Yeah, so it's a blessing and it's a curse. I really enjoy it. Creativity really isn't my thing. I'm more of an idea guy. I'm good at saying what I want, and then it takes many other people to put those pieces together for me most times.
Okay.
I
So
walk
you
into
aren't
a room,
designing the
vomit
jerseys
ideas.
yourself then?
Huh?
You aren't spending the time designing the jerseys?
So I don't have the artistic ability nor the technical ability to be able to do it the way that they do it now. So I couldn't
Okay.
draw it if you needed me to draw it, and I can't do it with the programming that you need. But I am involved in every step of the process of what I like, what I don't like, what I want
Okay.
to change. And I have a few people in my inner circle that really help me with that as well.
Nice. So you're the overall design from the top, but you got some people underneath you doing the technical work, if you will.
I'm the idea guy. And then I have some folks around me that are like, that's a great idea. And then they put some pieces together. And then I take the idea and the pieces and I send it to my design guy. And I'm like, this is what I want,
Okay.
and then he comes back with what he thinks is in my brain, right? Because I want him to know what's in my brain. And then we tweak it and make some changes, and I think that we come out with some heat.
Yeah, no, I've been a big fan of all the boys' tech tees they've been getting this year.
Yeah.
Need them to get a little bit thicker so I can start stealing them from them. So what's the plan for the organization going forward? You guys are in a pretty unique spot. I believe you've already secured your championship for both D4 and D3. Not the overall season, but the championship bracket at Cup.
I think D3 is pretty much a lock for the champions bracket, right? I think in the NXL it takes 2 event scores.
Okay.
So with their 2 first place scores, I think it'll be pretty hard to knock them out of the top 4. So I think that they're pretty much a lock. The D4 has a first and a third, which I think that they have a good opportunity to still improve on that if they decide to play Texas, or to hope that a first and a third is good enough to get to that bracket. The D5 guys are in the hunt. They're not. I think there's two teams tied at first place in D5,
Okay.
and then I think there's 3 teams tied at third place in D5.
Man.
So there's 5 teams right now that are in that, and they have an opportunity to be in there as well, right?
Yeah.
The kids are tied with Hydra for first because I think they count 1 event score.
Okay.
I'm not real sure how that one will work out. But yeah, the goal is to grind, keep training the way that we train. These guys train, a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, on a lot of weeks. I know from November up until about April, it was Saturday and Sunday every weekend. They train consistently. I mean, the goal is for them to win World Cup, for them to win the series. If that wasn't the goal, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think if they continue to grind, they continue to keep the task at hand, understand that there's a lot of work left to do. We have some of the best training staff, coach-wise, that you could have at a divisional level. It doesn't get much better than having 2 semi-pro guys train your guys every weekend.
Yeah.
And then let's not, our field, we have the D2 newbies there who are constantly winning. We have the NXL high roller girls there that are always finishing well. We have Leverage who is there and playing every weekend. So we have a lot of teams there. Our guys are fortunate to get to grind against those teams, and I think the work is paying off, and it shows.
Yeah. Yeah. And they you got to host a couple pro teams before Atlantic City. So, and anytime those guys come into town, it's always a boost, right? Outside of the Leverage Pro guys. But then TPP crew from Puerto Rico, they've come up a couple times to see you.
TPP usually does layout practice with us, and they're a great group of guys, very helpful, very competitive. They work hard, they train hard. It's always nice having them around. The Brave guys come down sometimes from New York.
Okay.
The Corrupt guys come over sometimes. The owner of Corrupt has a field not too far from my field, so most times they'll play at their field, but they're another competitive team that comes over. We have a lot of competitive teams that play out of QuickShot. It's really a hub of of high functioning, paintball. We're fortunate to be playing out of there.
Well, I mean, you've also kind of developed that hub a little bit. So, don't take too much, there's credit there because
I just
having a
try and
culture
give
like
them,
that from the top down.
I just try and give them, you know, I want them to have everything that they need there, right? So I want those teams to come there and have a very well-maintained field with all the facilities that they need to make them want to come play there, right? And that's something I could do, right? Like, you have to know what you can and can't do, what you are good at and what you're not good at. And one thing that I can do is make sure that they're coming to play paintball at a place that's run well, that has what it needs. And we have our challenges, though. Sometimes we get so many teams, it's hard to balance and make sure everybody gets enough spin time, and we're always working on that, because, again, I didn't know anything about owning a paintball field before I owned one, so it's like I'm learning everything on the fly.
Yeah. Well, you got Chris you can always call. He was
Yeah.
a field rat for many years.
Chris is that guy that can keep up with four lines of pit help and have them all running correctly. He's also that guy that'll go get you 17 cases of paint on your last match of the day.
True. Love you, buddy. Love you.
That's my guy. I'm telling you, without him, nothing happens. He actually brought his wife Rachel to Ohio. That was really cool. She was right in the pit with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Rachel is actually a lot of help in the pit. If you
Yeah.
can get her to event, that's the key.
Yeah, she said she wouldn't be back for a minute.
Yeah. Well, Maisie does competitive cheer, and Chris handles the boys in paintball. She handles the cheer. So
For sure.
let's talk about your culture, because obviously, I've had the boys on, I've had Chris on, I've had a lot of people around that kind of have gone in and out of your circle a little bit, and they all sing your praises on culture and the culture you create and how unique it is. So if you were talking to someone in the West Coast that was going to start a program, what advice would you give them on culture?
Culture is something that really takes buy-in from everybody that's involved, right? Like, we can all talk about culture and winning and commitment and hard work, but really, culture comes from everyone believing in each other, right? Like, the team is greater than the individual, people wanting to be there, the time that you spend off of the field as well as the time that you spend on the field. But we try and build an environment that everybody feels like they can belong to, and they not only they can belong, but they want to belong, right? Our athletes come first, right? Even before our coaches. We don't really want our athletes thinking about like the decisions of any of the management. Like, here, players are players, right? The coaches and the management, they do the coaching and managing. Uh, whether you play 1 point or every point, right? We're all the same. And it's hard to keep a lot of, really talented players so to keep playing and keep coming back when maybe they only get 2-3 spins in a tournament, right? That's that culture piece. That's that thing. Everybody wants what they want, and they want it right now. But we have the right group of guys. We have high character guys that want to win for each other. They want to practice with each other. They want to hang out with each other. If you can't fit the culture, you don't belong here. When we interview folks to join our organization, it's a two-way interview, right? Like, it's an interview for them to decide whether or not we're the right fit for them. And then we're also interviewing them to see if they're a right fit for us. And you might have a really good gun. You might be a really talented player, but if you're a selfish player, you're not a fit here, right? Filthy isn't a place for superstars. The team itself is a machine. We want them to go out there and be like a machine. Sometimes when folks see themselves as bigger than the machine, it stops the machine from working right. So we really have a team first mentality. We're all together. The D3 guys help the D4 guys, help the D5 guys, help the kids. Everybody's always thinking about the kids. Our behavior around the kids, our behavior when we're in public, the way that we talk, the way that we approach the game. These guys come in, they act like a professional, they handle themselves like a professional, they speak like professionals. Uh, I really enjoy watching them. I can't tell you that I can envision it being much better than it is with the group of guys that we have. We're very fortunate. It makes it really easy to build a culture of winning and positive energy and not infighting in the pits and not blaming each other when something's going wrong, right? Because when you're winning, everything is great,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right? But the true test comes when you're losing, and guys aren't storming off. They're not quitting. They're not cursing at each other. They're not blaming each other. Coming off, taking accountability for yourself, being to practice on time, staying, doing the extra at the field, making sure that they clean up after themselves to set a good example. We're really fortunate. The culture here, I would say, is unmatched, in my opinion. Like, I can't compare my athletes to anybody else's athletes, but I can tell you that these guys, to a man, every single one of them is bought into the program and does everything they can for their teammate. And that's an amazing thing.
Nice. You said a lot of important things there. So if your team is struggling, you might want to rewind that and go back and think about mentality. So I really like the machine analogy, right? If someone thinks they're the best part of the machine and make a big deal out of that, then the machine stops. And it doesn't matter how good that part is if the machine stops.
Yeah, we need 5 players on the field to do 20%, right? We don't need 1 player to do 80%. We need 5 players to do 20%. And guys that are bought into that and they understand that and they trust in each other and they go out there and they play like that. We can all talk about wanting to win or wanting to be competitive, but if we don't practice together regularly, if we don't show up to practice on time, if we spend 50% of the practice talking and drinking in the parking lot, like, there's a lot of things that I see a lot of teams do that to me aren't very productive or help you get where you want to be, right? Like, so for us, it's really about maximizing on every minute that we have together. I had a coach early on, he said, Sundays are sacred with the boys, and that stuck with me. It's sacred time. You're out there, you have wives, you have kids, you have girlfriends, you have jobs, you have all these things that you're putting to the side for this time. Like, we have to respect that and maximize it.
Yeah, that is true because, it's not only money you sacrifice, it's time.
Yeah, paintball takes it all.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And then some on Sunday.
Yeah, it takes it all. It's really a journey.
So what is I mean, don't answer if you feel like you can't. But what is next for like the Filthy brand? You made a splash with your pants. You got great jerseys. So what's the next move for the brand?
So we're doing some pod packs and some other things paintball related, but really, ideally for me, I'm trying to get out of, we're not a paintball brand, right? Filthy Streetwear isn't a paintball brand. So we do some tactical clothing, would like to get into some uniform clothing for law enforcement.
Okay.
We do streetwear, loungewear, bathing suits. I would like to get a little bit more into the gym aspect and clothing that folks wear to the gym.
Yeah. It's a
There's a
great
lot of
name for a
companies
gym
out there.
brand.
There's a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy thing. And to be honest, I don't have the time right now that I had when I first started tinkering with it to really maybe get it to go where I want it to go. When I started it, we had one line, right? It was D4, and maybe we had the youth line, which was no work at all, right? Now we have 4 lines, and now we're playing all the NXL tournaments. So it's getting increasingly more challenged.
Yeah. Well, and running an organization itself can be a part-time job / full-time job. So there's a lot going on there.
I never thought about it until I had to do it, but just the logistics of moving all of our people to these different venues and housing and transportation. I mean, down to the pods and the things that you need and pit help, right?
Yeah.
Like, these things all mean so much in a tournament, right? Like,
And they can
I don't
make or
know how
break a
teams
team.
yeah, I don't know how teams do it without it. Every one of our pits runs the same. If you go into our kids pit or you go into our D3 pit, it's the same pit staff, the same amount of pods are filled, the same procedure. When they come off of the field, the procedure is the same, how they get their air, how they get wiped down, how they get pods, how they get the information from the coach. It's all the same. What they do in between sets, it's all the same. It's a disciplined, well-organized, well-run machine. You know, they come and they understand their job is to perform, and the support staff takes care of everything else. And we have a great support staff. We're really fortunate to have them. One of our kids' parents, Landon, who's another up-and-coming kid, his dad is really helpful. My wife works a tremendous amount. Like, we have so many folks that help us out at these events that it would be, it would be next to impossible. They make the event run.
Okay, nice. Full effort from everyone in the organization. That's awesome, though. And we talked about wanting to get, the goal is to go pro. So right now, like, I think the D3 guys have to take the step up next year. Pretty much,
I
right?
would anticipate that our
step to
D3 guys will be playing at the next level next year. They're that good. I feel like, points wise, obviously they're going to have the points that they're going to need to advance next year. Most of us on the D4 line already have attained enough points to move up to D3. So everybody's just naturally going to need to move forward. Yeah, the end goal is at some point to put together a pro line, not to buy a spot, but to earn one. And, I feel like we have the cornerstone pieces now on the D3 line, and I can only envision that, I'll do what I need to do to keep bringing in the players that they need to get them in the position that they need. That's my responsibility, right? Their responsibility is to train and to play. Stevie and I, we focus on, bringing folks in and finding other people. It doesn't hurt that Mason and Trey play for Team USA. That's an attraction,
Yeah.
right? We recently brought on Norris as a coach. He's been helpful. So, yeah, we'll continue to build to get them where they need to go, as long as the team stays together and they stay driven. And, we're as fortunate as we are to have the culture that we have. But with success comes, people wanting to pick apart your pieces, right?
Yeah.
So we know that folks are watching, and fortunately, the guys trust me to keep doing what I'm doing this year to put them in a position to succeed. I trust them to do what they need to do. At the end of the year, we'll sit down and talk and see if we want to do it again, and we'll move from there.
Okay. Well, I think it's incredibly rare in the divisional side of things to have the opportunity to only be a player, right? Even if you have a coach on a lot of teams, there might be a coach, maybe he's hired, maybe he's not, but then there's at least 3 to 4 guys on the squad that really run the squad. So to have the opportunity to be a player and just get to focus on being a player is a tremendous opportunity that guys in your camp sound like they're getting.
Well, I would agree with you. It's a two-edged sword, though, right? Because that was one of the downside with the team that we had built last year was there was some resistance, right? Like the help in the logistics and the management, it sounds good, right? But when you're an alpha and you want to be the killer, right? Like you don't want to take any feedback from anybody else, and you don't want to listen to anybody else, and you want to be your own boss. And it really takes a special athlete to understand that they're a great player, but it takes more than a great player to build a winner, right? And I think my guys are very fortunate. I have to tell you, I don't think many divisional lines. I think that you could probably put the support that my guys get up there, in a semi-pro level, like the amount of support that they get. And I don't mean that I'm paying for them to play paintball, but I just mean that everything is put together for them. They know where they got to go. They know where they got to be. They don't have to think about anything. They just have to play paintball, right? I think that kind of support is invaluable and allows an athlete to just focus on being an athlete, and the blessing is, that's the culture, is the guys appreciate that. My guys appreciate that, right? Like, they don't take it for granted. I'm sure there's times where they want to be like, hey, Don, why don't you go? You know what I mean? But they don't. They understand there's give and take with everything, the same way that I understand there's give and take with anything. And, I'm fortunate to have these guys, and I believe that if you ask them, they would tell you they were fortunate to have us. So I think that it's a good balance.
Nice. So, do you guys put any filthy lines in the regional leagues up there? I know a lot of your guys play regionally, but is there a filthy line that will play like the EPL or anything like that?
So the guys will put a filthy line into the EPL. They kind of manage that themselves, right? So that's not like, so we have a no guesting policy.
Okay.
At Filthy, right? Like, that's part of the culture, right? Is that we train to play as a unit, and we're not going to risk injury, or we don't want to learn bad habits playing other places, right? The guys will put their own line in the EPL out of our camp. So they don't take players from other camps, and they don't, it's players from our camp. They'll put it together away from me, and they'll play the EPL, and it's more for fun than for anything.
Gotcha.
Our D4 line did play the first GSXL, which is an X-Ball league up here, and we took first place this year. We didn't play the second one because, to be honest with you, I find that if we're traveling to these NXL events, it's cost prohibitive for them to be able to play other X-Ball events here.
Yeah.
And really the focus has got to be on training,
Yeah, it's kind of got to pick, either do regional or national, right? Like, it's really expensive if you're running multiple leagues.
Well, think about it. Paintball is the only sport where you win and it still costs you money.
Yeah.
It just costs you less money, right? But it still costs you money. You go win NXL. I mean, at D4, you win a couple $1,000s and a $1,400 credit toward the next event. Well, the next event is like, $2,400, $2,500 just to register. You're not really winning anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've hit our mark where I normally keep these. Is there anything else you want to talk about on here?
Nah,
okay.
I really appreciate you having me on. I apologize again about the delay.
I get it. I get it. So I appreciated you reaching out to me earlier this week and saying, hey, can we get it done?
Well, you had your henchmen on me.
Yeah.
All your henchmen been on me. Colin's been on me. Chris has been on me. I was like, I really want to get on the podcast. I scheduled it a few times, and then something would happen, and I was like, man. I said I'm going to reach out to him and make it happen. I wanted to make it right, and I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate your patience with me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'd love to connect in the off season. I think that would be fun to kind of just review the whole season, and
for sure,
you as a owner and player, and talk about what you guys are doing in the off season. So
sounds like a plan, brother.
Shout out the sponsors, and we'll call it a wrap.
All right. Hey, Vulcan paint is the paint.
Yep. And it'll be right here.
Without Vulcan paint, none of this would be possible. It's the best paint in the game. We appreciate you.
All right.
Take care.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Planet Paintball Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Whether you're out there grinding in the divisional pits or chasing dreams on the pro stage, remember, it's all about the passion, the hustle, and the love for the sport. Shout out to 1023 Sportswear for sponsoring the show. Don't forget to use code Planet Paintball at checkout for 20% off your order. Gear up, save big. Until next time, keep grinding, keep growing, and we'll see you back here on the Planet Paintball Podcast